All right, we're starting with Willow. Let's talk about Willow's new single, Hover Like a Goddess. What'd you think of this one?
She always delivers for me ever since the EP. Lately, I Feel Everything.
That was an album, I thought, right? Full length?
It's short, though.
It is pretty short, yeah. But she does deliver, like, consistent material. Maybe the albums are a little shorter, but they're more frequent, which I always prefer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was re-listening to that album, and it's 26 minutes, 12 songs.
Wow.
There is a little, like, just, like, spoken interlude.
Sure, yeah.
Thing. But this song is also, I think, 2 minutes and 23 seconds. Short.
Get in, do your thing, get out. Mm-hmm. Well, I loved it. And you know, going back to that last album, Lately I Feel Everything, and especially that single Transparent Soul, I fucking love that song. It's so good.
Yeah.
And, you know, something I wrote down here, which applies to the new single and also her last record, and her record with her writing partner, which was called The Anxiety. She's very good at taking her influences and running with it instead of just like, well, these are my influences, so I sound like this.
Yeah, vocally, she's doing something I feel like pretty fresh in the era of pop punk rehash.
Totally. And the production is always cool and interesting. It's always sort of like dirty and grimy. There's almost always some sort of like gritty distortion on her vocal, and it's the type of distortion that particularly shines through when she like belts a big note and holds it, and then you just hear that distortion is cutting through the mix. I love it. Yeah. I love this kind of mix.
She actually has an astonishing vocal range, especially using full voice. So like the belting you were saying, just listening back through that song Naive, at the end she goes full like Kelly Clarkson.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't think people really notice because it's like a yelly, you know, people think pop punk, you just kind of like, but.
And you still have to yell in key.
Yeah, and it's sustained. It's not like all over the place.
Totally.
It's really impressive.
Yeah, I wrote love her voice. The drums are great. There's kind of these hard pan toms working in that track, and I think it adds a lot of oomph and drive to the song. A lot of power behind it, a lot of low end power, which I knew, you know, going into it is always a strong point with her production. And I think that writing partner that she did The Anxiety with usually is helping out on production side with her projects.
Yeah, what's his name? Because I looked at the credits.
I forget his name, but you know what I felt about this song too was like a little bit of No Doubt / other ska. Let's see, production. I'm wrong.
Yeah, different person.
Yeah, but it is always something that she clearly puts a lot of effort into.
I was gonna say I did write down attitude. It can be kind of a vague like platitude-y thing to say, oh, she's got like attitude, but it translates to a lot of really interesting things that she's doing with her voice. She's not just coming out and just singing the notes. She's really doing everything she can to make the vocal delivery better and just kind of a cut above the rest.
It's always like soaring. Soaring, I think, is the word I would use to describe her vocal. She always has big choruses that are, I don't know, triumphant sounding while still having that sort of attitude.
It's effortless despite the grittiness, which you wouldn't think would go together. You'd think gritty, you feel the effort. But yeah, she just kind of takes it and goes with it. And I have not really attempted to sing any of her. I imagine it would be quite difficult.
Any of her songs?
Yeah. I mean, I sing along to them sometimes when I'm listening, like when I listen at work, but I don't think I could actually sing anything as well as she does.
Huh. So what do you think about this note of like a little bit of No Doubt ska in there?
I definitely see that comparison between her and Gwen Stefani, particularly taking the early kind of vocals she was doing pre-Tragic Kingdom, something like Total Hate. versus her later, much more belty, poppy type of stuff that still had her own distinct sound to it. So it's almost like Willow is taking both of those and combining together. You have the grittiness and sort of the rawness of it, but still the vocal ability.
Yeah, definitely the earlier No Doubt stuff when they were still like, you know, major ska influence. I totally felt that in this track a lot. And you know, that's all the notes I wrote down because I was kind of just enjoying this song. I listened to it a couple of times and I'm just a big fan. You know, I actually haven't heard anything prior to Lately I Feel Everything. I know that's when she had a major sound shift. And so it's just that record, The Anxiety, and the new singles is what I've heard. And talk about some cool art direction going on these new songs.
I was going to say that too. Yeah, the cover of Lately I Feel Everything and some of the glitchy stuff. Not on this particular single, but on her profile imagery.
Her artist page on Spotify and the single prior to this has this crazy glitch art that I think fits perfectly with what she's doing. It seems like she works with a small team of people, and you almost feel that. There's, I hesitate to say this because I know this is a massive star that has, you know, a lot of resources, but it almost, some of her stuff can feel like this cool Bandcamp project that you stumbled on.
Yeah, it feels very, you know, like it's just her and one person in a studio or something. It doesn't feel like she has, it doesn't feel like she has the whole crew.
Yeah. And it's not, you know, clearly she's moved far beyond her past of Whip My Hair and, you know, doing that kind of thing. And it's so cool that people have just been like, yeah, great, cool, we're on board. And it's been really successful. And I mean, of course, there's the Travis Barker of it all too.
Yeah, this is, again, it's going back, but just because we both know that album pretty well, and because this really slots right into that aesthetic, I think it's important to talk about her and in the way that she's working with the sort of pillars of the previous generation of pop punk artists and taking what they've done to a new level, but also like showing them the respect of, I don't know if she brought Avril and Travis in or who the label. I have no idea how that happened.
They've kind of taken on this role, them two, of the sort of godfather and godmother of pop punk that are helping usher in this new crew of people making pop punk that also pushes it beyond a certain level and into sort of a new genre in itself. You know, I have talked before about pop punk when I was a kid sort of hit a point after Blink-182's Untitled record and American Idiot where it was like, well, we've kind of done all we can do here. Like, let's wrap it up. This thing's gone far enough. I think that's about the end point. And then the genre went a little dormant, at least in the mainstream. And now having it come back with these, like you said, these pillars of early pop punk and ushering in these new kids making awesome. Well, I guess I shouldn't say kids. I have no idea how old they are.
Yeah, Willow's pretty young though.
Yeah, I mean it's just really cool. It's a cool partnership, and it brings in an audience that maybe wouldn't hear it otherwise.
Yeah, we've talked about this before, that it's so strange how the two pillars of modern pop punk. First of all, you've got Avril Lavigne, who was very disrespected and derided in the general music, you know, the cool group. And she was super young. She was like 16, I think, when Complicated came out. And yet the current generation doesn't really have that context. They're just like, yeah, Avril Lavigne, she was huge, and she has these songs that I like. And she's kind of the one who's kept going. She's continued to put out albums, not great ones necessarily, but she keeps going. And she's also clearly willing to work. She's not saying like, oh, you know, I'm not going to do that. She's embracing what's going on. And also Travis Barker, a drummer, not a singer at all.
Yeah, but he was, I think it really goes to show how well he worked in Blink. And, he wasn't the original drummer. He came on a few records in, but it was almost like three frontmen, you know? You had two singers, sure, but Travis was such a just as popular as the other two and just as known, and I think did so many collaborations and other projects like right off the bat, and really just made that name for himself. So now when he comes in and is featured on new artist songs, it's just so cool.
Yeah, and you know who it is, which isn't really that common for a drummer. And again, it's cool that he's doing stuff like this. It lends a credibility, and it shows just sort of the genre mashing and the way that none of these things matter anymore. None of these separations matter anymore.
Yeah. I mean, we were watching like the 1999 VMAs, the MTV Video Music Awards recently, and like it was crazy the prevalence of like, if it was a rock guy on stage, he has to be trashing Britney and Christina.
It was horrible.
Vice versa. And, well, not really vice versa,
no,
honestly.
The pop people were not they were the ones sitting there being like, sorry, we're pop artists. Go ahead and talk about how lame we are because you have like a leather jacket on. And
yeah, you're right. You don't really get that now. Everything's so mashed together and genreless, and like if it's cool, it's cool. If it works, it works. And you just don't really get that like, well, I'm a rock guy, so I only listen to this and screw these people. And it's great. I think Willow is the perfect representation of that and how this is going to move forward and keep going. And I'm super excited to hear this album.
Is it from an album? I didn't look it up.
I don't know.
I think she's had some one-off singles, but I really hope so.
Assuming it's from an album. Hopefully it's an upcoming album.
Anything she puts out, I'm excited for.
Totally.